Okay, welcome to It's a Channel podcast primarily about women's football. I'm your host, Dino Decespedes, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engle. What's up, man?
I'm feeling pretty good, buddy. I thought that was an excellent match of football we watched, probably for most of the folks tuning in. Maybe not the result they wanted, but I think lessons were learned. I think there are things to build on. And, what else can you ask for?
Love lessons, love building blocks, love, foundational pieces. I don't like, disappointing results. I think this was definitely one. I'm going to ask you where we get started. But before we get started, I just don't want to forget this piece. This was one of the notes that I jotted down. I'm like, okay, Portugal, not traditionally one of the U.S.'s rivals, right? Like, that's not the first name that pops up. But for Portugal, we're clearly one of their biggest rivals because they hate the USA. A lot of fouls, a lot of physicality. This one got, definitely rough and tumble. But with that said, Mr. Granick, where are you going to get started?
I think there's only one place to get started, my good man. From the great state of Pennsylvania, Chester, Pennsylvania. In fact, Portugal 2, USA 1?
What? It happened. I saw it.
Watched it with my own two eyes. I think if you're tuning into this, many people who are tuning this probably know this is a UEFA Women's Champions League show. Some might say the greatest UEFA Women's Champions League show. That's not for me to say, though. That's fair. One of us can say it.
Not for you, but for me, different thing.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody has different standards here. 4 Benfica players in the starting 11 for Portugal. Amado at right back, Gomez at center back, Alves at left back, Diana Silva at forward. Didn't matter in the first 35 seconds, I'll tell you that. PTJ, Fallon Joyce, blast the ball upfield. Kat Macario just does her best Shaquille O'Neal impression and just draws 5 defenders, fights them all off with great physicality and skill, and then just dishes the ball to Rose Lavelle, who knocks in the goal. Where was your head at 34 seconds into the match or whatever it was when they popped that in and was also, by the way, definitely offside?
Yeah, definitely offside. My mind wasn't on the offside though call. I don't know if we had the right angle in real time, but my first thought was I thought Rose looked energetic and springy and like sunny in even in the pregame. You're just kind of like I was just getting the feeling that like, all right, Roosevelt, all right, now this is a player that we can kind of like pencil in. And I kind of felt dumb just spending the last 18 months being like, oh, well, she's got the injuries and, she's going to, and then you realize, okay, this player's not that old, and she's been out for a while, but, we can expect her to kind of be back. Obviously the offsides, we'll put that one off to the side. This isn't, like one of the, no real stakes with this one. The thing I'll take away though, the finish, perfectly placed, ton of power, nothing, that Pereira was going to be able to do to kind of do anything with that one. And it's like, okay, it was offsides, but great finish. Love to see that. And, we get to start the match off 1-0.
Yeah, I like I like the terminology you use of sunny. She does look like she is like getting like back to herself and playing with like a level of joy that you like to see out of like an attacking midfielder like her. So yeah, I mean, obviously the exact start you wanted, but it's if you're a USA fan, but it's one of those things where, and Emma Hayes talked about it in the press conference, the post-match presser. We'll talk about that later, but it was a very direct play. And it was, we've seen this kind of like U.S. women's national team, little bit of a transition into some Emma Hayes style ball. You noticed later in the match, PTJ is trying to play out from the back, play with the ball at her feet a little bit. I don't think that was a coincidence, but you get the goal in this very direct way. And it's like, okay, USA's back. Is this one going to get ugly? Are they going to just completely, dominate this match? And it did not happen.
Definitely didn't happen. I mean, I think it took some time for Portugal to kind of work their way into the match, shake off the shock of giving up the opener. But I thought their press, their commitment to it, and basically their willingness to say, all right, US, I don't think that you'll switch the ball, put something over the top, and make us have to scramble back the other way. So we're
Yep.
just going to put an extra defender or two on the side that the ball's on. And we know you're not going to like work the ball to the other side of the pitch. You're just going to kind of go where you've got it. And it kind of played right into Portugal's hands from that perspective. Also got a kick of, Foudy and Wildman being like, just a kind of like a weird misread of what we were watching. It's like they're, like it's like, oh, like, can Portugal hold up here? And it's like, are they going to be able to withstand the pressure? And then they'll flash the possession numbers. It's like 60-40 in favor of Portugal. Right. And like the ball just is clearly spending way more time on their side of the pitch than US's attacking side. So it always trips me out when I watch these games. I'm like, am I crazy watching this? And I don't have the same real-time stats that we do when we're watching like the domestic leagues. But right. I thought Portugal pretty early was able to kind of re-wrestle control, or at least be right back into the match, even down a goal.
I think that's totally fair. Before I go forward, though, speaking of starting a match slow, perhaps we should get into a beverage before it's too late.
I believe that. Let's do that. Let's hydrate. Let's get some. There's no electrolytes in here, but we'll get some. We'll get some calories.
Yeah, I don't need to be cramping up in the middle of this. Cheers to you. Cheers to the football. But it's a great point by you. I mean, Portugal was unafraid. You and I have liked this team since the 23 World Cup when they were debutantes in that tournament, I believe. And it was really when you and I started like talking to each other about women's football more and more often. And I'm glad you pointed it out at the beginning of the show also, is that they came in here looking to play physical, to not be afraid, and to challenge USA. And that was one of the things that we said in 2023 was, we've joked about it with Benfica too, is like, you got to hit the weight room, got to make sure the strength and conditioning program is up there, hire away a couple S&C coaches from some SEC college football teams, do what you got to do. And they looked ready out there, man. I loved the way they were, to your earlier point, they were swarming to the ball, but it was like an organized clustering to where they were making decisions very hard for USA.
Yeah, it's like the lines were still intact, but then like the two or three closest to the ball were just swarming, and there was no obvious place to go, like to get out of it, if you're the US. And I found myself a little frustrated with like the first 60 minutes of the match. And I'm glad you brought up the Emma Hayes quotes. I'm not going to mention one of those, but shout out to Jeff Kasu from ESPN, because he grabbed a couple quotes that he put into his ESPN piece that I think kind of told us a little bit of a story. So he quotes Rose Lavelle, who said it felt really an individual out there. And then she follows that up by saying, I think everyone is trying to fix it on their own. He grabs another Lindsay Heaps quote where she says, quote, sometimes it felt a little bit like we were on islands, end quote. So that, what I saw on the pitch that reflects both of those quotes is these midfield players, whether it's Coffey or Heaps or Lavelle, Patterson, I think to a lesser extent, it was just get the ball and try to kick ahead a low probability pass. And it's like, wait, can we not string together 5 passes versus Portugal? Like, and this is sort of like our 8, what's going on here that we can't work the ball up like it's just not even an option. Like it was just, and then you can see with the substitutions that Emma Hayes makes, it's a whole swap of the midfield plus a Cooper for Yasmin Ryan swap. So it's clear that Emma Hayes is also thinking this midfield setup is not really working. The only player that was able to really kind of advance it consistently was probably Avery Patterson, who I think offensively provided a spark and, was providing a lot of pressure. Portugal was attacking her a little bit, on the defensive side. So she was super involved in most of the match. But I don't know, man, I found the offense pretty frustrating. I'm really curious to hear how you experienced, that U.S. attack. I'm looking at the stats here too. 12 shots for Portugal, 5 for the USA. That's a pretty lopsided number.
It's bizarro world, man. Like you can
Mm.
just tell there is an element of U.S. Women's National Team fans who find that hard to wrap their head around. Is to watch a team
Yep.
come in, especially a team that's doesn't have in women's football doesn't have a name like Germany, Brazil, Spain. Even Canada in some stretches. I know we've joked about USA beating them a majority of the time, but like to see Portugal, this kind of uprising, or this, well, how do I want to say it? This program, this women's program that's kind of trending upward that you and I have always talked about a lot. Is like they clearly have the infrastructure from the men's side of the game. Now they just need to overlay that onto the women's side. You could tell the fans were just as shell shocked as some of the players out there.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm with you. I think if I had to name the best player on the pitch for USA, I think it was Avery Patterson. I think so. I mean, obviously Lavelle looked good early and got the goals, but got the goal. Pardon me. But it felt like Patterson on the wing was finding some joy, and that also spoke to some hand wringing that I could see on Blue Sky, that people just didn't like that USA was not attacking those wings, and they were tucking the right back and the left back inside and kind of playing into Portugal's hands. And there used to be a time where USA could just play any old way they wanted to and we're probably going to
Mm-hmm.
win. And I
Yep.
just don't think that day really exists anymore.
That was not any more clear than, or like around the 85th minute. They're like, all right, well, let's try to let's try to free Alyssa Thompson up here. Ball
Mm-hmm.
over the top, left hand side, let her run onto it, 1-on-1 versus Amato, who she should be able to beat. But Amato, to her credit, steps in front of Alyssa left,
Up for
steps
it.
in front of her right, and just completely stones her. And it's like, all right, it doesn't matter how fast you are if you can't get around the defender, and they know what's coming. They know, like you said, if the defense knows what's coming, it's easier to defend. And there just was not a ton of answers. I played a fun game with myself. Obviously, Lily Johannes comes in like around the 69th minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to start to do this whenever Johannes is not in the starting lineup, where I'm going to timestamp the first time where I look up at the clock and I say to myself, why is Lily not in the game?
There we go.
And in this one, it was 17 minutes, 51 seconds. Where
Right.
I was like, I look up,
Sure.
I'm like, all right, get Lily. Like, I know it's, I'm not.
I feel like that'd be
advocating for a
early for a
sub
sub.
early. It's an early sub, no doubt. But it was more that her connectivity could have really helped, and we got to see some really fun duels. Her versus Kika in the midfield, kind of scrapping at balls. It kind of feels like this is going to be a matchup that we get to enjoy for 10 years. Maybe there's a Barcelona Lyon parallel. Obviously the bubbling USA Portugal rivalry that's clearly becoming something. I mean, I think we're probably in need of turning a corner, like probably like I don't want to say philosophically, but it's weird to see the heat. Yeah. And I hate to like pair these players. These are great players, but like the Heaps, Coffee, Lavelle, kind of old school style of, trying to break through, and just seeing that be way, way, way less effective. And I agree with your point. I had completely forgot that we made that weight room joke about Portugal. And also kind of tied that to Benfica, because you watch that team today, that team looked strong. They looked fast. Yes. It didn't look like the US had any physical advantage other than maybe a couple of spot here, spot there.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it makes a massive difference. Like, Portugal had a rough go of it in the Euros. Getting put in Spain's group, never enjoyable for anybody. But I think what really has stuck out to me, seeing some of her minutes at Barcelona, is Kika Nazareth was still too hurt to really make a difference in the Euros. She was just injured, man, because when she's at full strength, that corner kick she hit, the first one, is just on a fucking rope, right to Gomez for the opener goal, for the equalizer. I mean, she hit that so perfectly, and you could just tell when she was on the ball in the middle of the field. You talked about like some of the duels with her and Coffee, her and Sonnet, her and Patterson kind of getting in the mix at times, her and Heaps. Like, Kika is just a matchup nightmare out there. She's long, but she's quick. She can move in the short bursts, but then she makes smart, long ranging runs. She does everything you could possibly do on a football field. She's just one, and you and I, since she was at Benfica in the 2023 Champions League, just one of our absolute favorite players to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. And you're just not out muscling her, and she's so smart. Portugal almost scored off a set piece like 10 or 15 minutes prior, like around the 25 minute mark. This made me like I almost like fell out of my chair, like hearing Luke Wyman say, he said it like 3 times, US could have been up 2-0. And I'm like, they also could have been up 0-0. like it could have been, it could have been no goals. Like, we can't really keep playing that game. And I think that also plays into what you were saying earlier, where the crowd just becomes a little shell shocked because there's a lot of buy-in to this sort of like Marvel cinematic universification of this U.S. Women's national team, where you're just like, they're kind of unbeatable. The one thing I wanted to, a couple of things real quick. PTJ, I thought, had a really good game. I think she's getting closer to grabbing hold of that number one spot and just being like, this is mine, until otherwise. And then the second piece, I wanted to ask you this question. You look at an Esther Gonzalez, you look at a Bunny Shaw, you look at an Eva Payor, you even look at a player we were talking about, Alessia Russo, as a traditional number 9 finisher. And then you think about all the times there was a ball kind of knocking around the box and player, like our U.S. players just bumping into Portugal play, and nobody can get a foot on it. Nobody can really like get the total nose for goal type moment to just be able to smash it in. You close your eye, you see Bunny do that, you see Esther do that. Can the U.S. win if we fast forward 2 years to 2027 without one of those top 3 in the world number 9s and just kind of like, I don't know, kind of slice and dice their way to a World Cup championship? I know it's early and it's a little bit, it's not quite hyperbole, but it's a thought exercise that, has maybe very little validity because it's so far out. But I had a hard time imagining a team winning without a finisher like that in today's game.
Sure. I think it's a fair point. I think you and I are both admirers of Kat Macario's game. I think there's still a lot of discussion that people have as, is she a 9 or is she a 10? Because, that passing ability, her hold up game, like I referenced, like,
awesome.
I know you and I have talked about the Shaquille O'Neal, idea of just like, I'll just put my body into you and you're not getting around me. And then I make a smart pass. Luckily, I will say, well, not luckily right now. There is a hole at the number 9 spot. But now, luckily, there is a player named Sophie Wilson who will return, who will fill that spot at number 9 and might not be one of the 3 best number 9s in the world. Although, please, Portland Thorns fans, don't accost me for this. But she's damn sure one of the 7 best number 9s in the world, I would say. She's not too far down the list when she's playing at her max. So I would say I wouldn't be too worried about that. Wilson will come back. There was no Trinity Rodman tonight, so it's not like fully the A team. And this like how crazy the roster is. Like, I don't think Cooper is oh man, I don't even know how to Cooper's not a gigantic step down from Rodman, but she's a noticeable step down. And I love Michelle Cooper's game, but there's only one Trinity Rodman.
You could. There's not a lot of other players that aren't a step down globally. I don't know. CGH is probably in that category.
I was going to say it's her and CGH.
There's not a lot of others.
Yeah.
I know. I had that same thought watching the game. I'm like, this is a player that we have to account for not being there. But I mean, I think even still, losing on your home soil, obviously it's a friendly, to a team ranked in the 20s is not something that you would expect from like a top tier kind of team.
Sure.
And I'm going to be dying to see what the return fixture looks like in a few days. Because if it looks similar, even if the result is different, I think that could be some kind of like alarm bells. And we're kind of at that point where 2 years out, there could still be some, I don't want to say major changes, but like some reroutes, I would say, with Emma Hayes maybe going some different directions in some spots and with some of the strategy. She seemed pretty frustrated from her quotes at the post-game presser.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she did have the stat that it's been 113 days between matches. She had that in the holster, ready to put out there. And I'm not trying to be flip about it. I don't think it's an excuse. I thought in her post-match press conference, I watched the whole thing. I thought she was accountable, but I thought she took responsibility, and I thought that she held the players accountable too. And just I thought she had some really interesting quotes. I want to start with this one. So she said, quote, "In attack, it felt like we just hadn't played together for a long time. I didn't recognize us. I felt that we rushed everything. We went direct. We didn't look like the team that we'd been working on," end quote.
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting, to my point earlier about, the first goal comes direct. The other goal that was that Lavelle nearly scored, that Pereira made a nice save on, just barely gets the touch to knock it off the post. That was through direct play as well. There's going to be some rust there in terms of not playing together. But the other point that I want to make quickly here, I think I'm walking away from this match more bullish on Portugal. That was a performance, man. Like, I thought that was really great. And it goes to the other Emma Hayes quote that I really liked. So she went on to say quote, "I keep teaching our team, don't underestimate European opponents. They play Champions League. They play Nations League. They know how to waste time. They know how to make it difficult in many different ways," end quote. And like, with Kika in the middle and a bunch of smart, tough, kind of rugged players out there, like, I think that they just really have something cooking over there that I think they will continue to get better. They certainly played better than the number 23 ranked team in the world today.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. They played better. That was a better team than the team that, pushed USA to the brink in the 23 World Cup by a lot.
No doubt.
This team was very dangerous. You can even look at like Carolina Santiago, 19 years old, plays for Sporting CP, who was the player that Jessica Silva comes in and replaces. I thought Santiago was like good and young and spry and dangerous. And, when you have a player like Kika in the middle who can just distribute and find players and can make every pass and can shoot, and you can't take the ball from her. So right off the bat, it makes it very difficult. And yeah, you can definitely imagine that team, that Portugal team, with a couple more pieces, or maybe a couple of these players evolving a little bit, and that being a team that could make a Final Four or a Final 8 run in that 27 World Cup. I think the age profiles certainly match. Any other big notes from this U.S. match? Obviously, we're going to be pretty pumped to watch that rematch in a few days here. But anything else you saw in this one that you want to hit?
I think that's about it. I mean, the last quote that I'll say. Oh wait, there is one thing I do want to mention, that PTJ had that great save in the 40th minute, that forced the corner kick that led to the equalizer. But it was a great save by Tullis Joyce. And on the replay, whoever the sound engineers were on I think the game was broadcast on TNT over here. They did a great job, because when Kika does the chip on the give and go, you could hear people in the crowd go, "Ooh," like as the chip goes over for the shot on goal that PTJ saved. And that was one of my favorite moments in the match, I think.
It was interesting with they were trying that chip quite a bit, with those crosses too. They clearly wanted to kind of draw the U.S. into some areas to kind of trip them up. And then, yeah, on those couple set pieces, the defense kind of befuddled, in two different ways. Obviously, the second one was like seconds after 4 players just kind of get subbed in, and then have to defend, and it's a whole mishmash. And then on that first one, I think Alves kind of like a little kind of rubber out action. She kind of gets away from coffee by, like kind of sliding behind Macario. But then a great finish on that one too. And Emma Hayes had a lot to say about the set piece defense. But I don't think it was, all of it was kind of off today. That was the main thing. And, sometimes that does align pretty well with like the notion of rust, which is why I'm so enthusiastic about the rematch. But I'll say I'm not totally buying all of it just yet. That 113 days wasn't just MAs. That was mentioned a couple times too on the telecast, which means, you're in this world too. That means that was something that was circulating that they wanted out there. Everybody wanted, we want everybody to know it's been 113 days. So I'm, we'll kind of take it with a grain of salt a little bit and check back in a few days to see what that next matchup looks like.
I like it. I think that makes sense. I think I think I have 2 final quotes. I'll save one for the absolute outro. But one thing I thought Emma Hayes said gave me a chuckle in the post game press conference was sometimes you need a kick up the backside like that, end quote, which is a pretty English way to say it. But yeah, you came out, you played another good team, and they were less rusty, I guess, or I don't know what it was, but I think there were elements of,
they were more resty.
They looked a little, they were more resty. They looked a little more prepared. And they looked like they had a little bit of a better plan. And I thought Emma Hayes wore that in the post-match presser as well.
Yep, definitely saw that for sure. All right, man. I think we did it. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, hanging out with your boys. If you want to support the show, Into the Channel or patreon.com/Into the Channel or ITC merch. 2 great ways to do that. If you enjoy the show or love Women's Football as much as your boys do, make sure you kick with us each and every single week. Like, subscribe, follow, or leave us a review. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Engle, for never being afraid to give one a kick on the backside, whether that's a co-host or some competition out there. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. We hold each other accountable, but we also do the best we can, and we win and lose as a team no matter what. So, we're just out here. We appreciate all of you being on the team with us. And let's also try to live by another thing that Emma Hayes said. I just want to make sure that I find it here. Let's not take this too seriously. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, so I'll try not to butcher it too much. But she did say something very similar to, nobody died. It's just a game of football. So let's try to keep some perspective here. Let's all learn and grow together. And that's why we appreciate you guys for always dropping knowledge. So thank you for that. And we will see you all next time.